"My husband doesn't like you, Mom. He thinks you're pathetic." Those were the words that came out of my daughter Olivia's mouth when I asked her why I wasn't invited to her wedding. And I swear to God, something inside me shattered so completely in that moment that I felt it physically, like glass breaking behind my ribs. Let me step back, because context matters. My name is Catherine Morgan. I'm 52 years old. 15 years ago, my husband Michael died in a car accident on a rain-slick highway at 9:17 p.m. I remember the exact time because the police officer kept glancing at his watch while telling me my life was over. Olivia was 11. From that night forward, it was just the two of us. I worked 2 jobs: mornings at a medical billing office, evenings tutoring high school students in literature. I missed sleep. I missed dating. I missed entire pieces of myself. But I never missed a parent-teacher conference, never missed a recital, never missed the nights she cried over her first heartbreak. When she wanted piano lessons, I found the money. When she insisted on attending that private university to study art history, I signed loan papers with shaking hands and told her not to worry about the cost. And when she graduated 3 years ago, I bought her a house, a 3-bedroom craftsman with pale blue shutters and a small maple tree in the front yard. $230,000, my entire life savings. I told her it wasn't a gift, it was security. I thought security meant love. Last Tuesday, I found out through Facebook that she'd gotten married. A photo of Olivia in a white dress kissing a tall man I'd met exactly twice, Daniel Reed, captioned, "Best day of my life. Married my soulmate." My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped my phone. I called her 5 times before she answered. "What do you want, Mom?" she said, her tone sharp, irritated. "What is going on?" I asked. "Why wasn't I invited?" Silence, then a sigh. "Daniel didn't want you there." I thought that was the worst part. I was wrong. "He thinks you're pathetic," she added, "always trying to control my life. And honestly, I agree." The word echoed. Pathetic. I drove straight to the house. My house, technically. The deed was still in my name. We'd always said we'd transfer it after the wedding. And then life kept moving, and it never happened. Daniel opened the door. He smirked when he saw me. "Oh, it's you. I need to speak to my daughter." He placed his hand flat against my chest. "She doesn't want to talk to you. You need boundaries." Olivia appeared behind him, arms crossed. "Mom, I told you how things are." I begged to speak to her alone. "No," she said. "Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of my husband." The way she emphasized husband felt deliberate. Daniel laughed. "You don't get it, do you? You're suffocating her, acting like she owes you because you paid for things." "I never said she owed me anything," I whispered. "Well, she doesn't want you in her life," he snapped. And Olivia didn't correct him. When Daniel shoved me backward off the porch, I caught myself on the railing. For a split second, my mind went to calling the police, the sheer shock of his hand on me. But I looked at Olivia, and the stillness on her face stopped me cold. I looked at her. She didn't move, didn't protest, just stood there under his arm. "Just go, Mom," she said quietly. That was the moment something hardened inside me. I walked to my car, sat there shaking, crying. And as I drove home, the hurt began turning into something colder. If I was pathetic for loving my daughter, then maybe it was time I stopped. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a minute. I sat in my home office with the lights off, the only glow coming from my desk lamp and the city bleeding faintly through the curtains. There was a glass of whiskey in my hand, something I rarely drank, and a yellow legal pad in front of me. At first, I just stared at the blank page. Then I wrote her name at the top, Olivia. Under it, I started listing everything, not out of spite, out of clarity. The house, legally still mine. The honeymoon to the Maldives I had secretly booked as a wedding surprise. 15,000 euros. The resort billed in euros, and I'd paid it anyway. I'd imagined her face lighting up when I handed her the envelope. I'd imagined her hugging me. The joint savings account I'd opened when she was 19. 500 euros deposited every month without fail. Nearly 20,000 accumulated. Her phone plan, her car insurance, her streaming subscriptions, her gym membership. Every small, invisible thread that connected my bank account to her life. I stared at that list for a long time. 15 years of sacrifice reduced to bullet points. Somewhere between the third glass of whiskey and the pale light of dawn, something inside me settled. If I was controlling, if I was suffocating, if I was pathetic for caring, then I would step back completely. Not halfway. Not dramatically. Completely. The sun wasn't fully up when I made the first call. The luxury resort in the Maldives answered on the second ring. I remembered how excited I'd felt when I booked it months ago. I'd requested the overwater villa with the glass floor. I'd imagined her waking up to turquoise water and whispering, "Thank you, Mom." "Good morning. This is the Coral Meridian Resort." I need to cancel a reservation, I said calmly, under the name Olivia Reed. There was a pause while she searched. Yes, ma'am, would you like to reschedule? No, I said, full cancellation. Refund everything to the original card. She informed me that due to policy, I would only receive 60% back. That's fine. I didn't care about the loss. I cared about the severing. Next, I logged into the joint account. 20,412 euros. I stared at the balance. I remembered the nights I transferred that money, telling myself it was for her future, for emergencies, for stability. My finger hovered for only a second before I transferred every cent back into my personal account. As a joint holder, I could do it, and I knew she'd see the alert whenever she finally looked. The balance dropped to zero. It didn't feel cruel. It felt clean. Then I began the smaller cuts. One by one, I called the service providers. Yes, I'd like to remove my payment method. Yes, cancel that. Yes, effective immediately. One representative hesitated. Ma'am, this will result in service interruption. That's exactly what I want, I replied. The hardest call was the realtor. Margaret Collins had helped me buy the house 3 years ago. She remembered how proud I'd been, how I'd insisted on paying in full. Catherine, that's your daughter's home, she said gently when I told her I wanted to list it. It's legally mine, I answered. There was a silence heavy with understanding. Are you sure? I told her what happened. About the wedding. About the word pathetic. About the shove. Margaret exhaled slowly. In this market, we could get around 280,000, she said. Possibly more. I don't care about profit, I said. But that wasn't entirely true. It wasn't about money. It was about reality. If Olivia and Daniel wanted independence so badly, I would give it to them in its purest form. Margaret promised to have paperwork ready by the afternoon. When I hung up, I sat back in my chair and looked at the list again. Line by line, I drew a thick black mark through each item I had dismantled. The honeymoon, the savings, the bills, the house, pending. My phone buzzed. Olivia. I watched it ring, then stop, then ring again. I didn't answer. I didn't listen to the voicemail that followed. For the first time in 15 years, I didn't rush to fix whatever problem she had created or encountered. By late afternoon, the house listing was live. Professional photos. Charming 3-bedroom craftsman with maple tree. I stared at the maple tree in the listing photo for a long time. I remembered planting it with her. She'd been 23, laughing as dirt got on her shoes. Now that tree would belong to someone else. That evening, exactly 1 week after her wedding, I sent a single text message. You said I was pathetic and not needed in your life. I've accepted that. You and Daniel are on your own now. Please don't contact me again. I pressed send. Then I blocked her number. Blocked her on social media. Deleted her from everything. I expected to collapse, to regret it instantly. Instead, I felt numb, like I had amputated something infected. Painful. Necessary. If she wanted freedom from her pathetic, controlling mother, she now had it completely. And soon, she would learn exactly what that freedom cost. For 3 days after I sent that message, my phone lit up like it was trying to resuscitate something already dead. Unknown numbers, private calls, even a text from Daniel. You're unbelievable. I deleted it without reading the rest. Margaret moved fast. The for sale sign went up that Friday morning. By Saturday, there were 2 offers. By Monday, a bidding war. Life doesn't pause for heartbreak. It just keeps calculating. Olivia must have driven past the sign, because on Tuesday she showed up at my office. I saw her through the glass doors first. Her hair was pulled back tight, jaw clenched, Daniel standing behind her like a shadow that thought it was taller than it was. I stepped outside before they could come in. What are you doing? She demanded. No hello, no mom. I'm exercising my legal rights. You're selling the house? Are you insane? Daniel stepped forward. This is harassment. You can't just pull the rug out from under us because your ego's bruised. I looked at him calmly. It's not your rug, I said. It's my floor. Olivia's face flushed red. You're proving everything Daniel said about you, she snapped. You only ever gave me things so you could control me. That one landed deeper than the shove. I gave you things, I said quietly, because I loved you. Love doesn't come with conditions. Neither does respect, I replied. Daniel scoffed. We're married. We're building a life. You're trying to sabotage it. No, I said evenly. I'm stepping out of it. There was a difference. She just couldn't see it yet. The sale closed in 6 weeks. $275,000. After fees and taxes, I walked away with more than I'd originally paid. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same week escrow finalized, I booked a trip to Japan. Kyoto, specifically. Cherry blossoms in the spring. A dream I had postponed for over a decade because Olivia always needed something first. Tuition, rent, security. I told myself it was poetic justice, but if I'm honest, it was grief management. Therapy helped. Dr. Whitman told me what I was experiencing wasn't anger, it was boundary shock. She said cutting off a child feels like a death because in many ways it is. You're grieving the daughter you thought you had, she said gently. That sentence stayed with me because she was right. I wasn't grieving Olivia. I was grieving the 11-year-old girl who used to crawl into my bed after thunderstorms. The teenager who asked my advice about boys. The college graduate who cried when I handed her keys to that house. The woman who stood on that porch and let her husband push me. For 3 months, there was silence. No calls. No messages. I slowly began rebuilding pieces of myself I'd forgotten existed. I joined a book club. Met friends for dinner without checking my phone every 10 minutes. Even went on 2 dates. Nothing serious, just conversation. Just proof that I was still a woman outside of motherhood. I wasn't healed, but I was steadier. Then, on a rainy Tuesday evening in late October, there was a knock at my door. It wasn't aggressive. It wasn't impatient. It was soft, almost hesitant. I opened it, and for a second I didn't recognize her. Olivia stood there, soaked from the rain, thinner than I remembered. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her hair hung limp in a messy ponytail. She was wearing sweatpants and an old jacket, one I bought her years ago. "Mama," she whispered. She hadn't called me that since she was 12. And just like that, the amputation metaphor stopped feeling clinical. It felt like blood. My heart betrayed me immediately, thudding painfully in my chest. "What do you want, Olivia?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. She started crying. Not dramatic tears, not manipulative ones, the kind that shake your shoulders and steal your breath. "Please," she said, "can I come in?" Every instinct screamed to wrap her in my arms, but instinct is what got me here in the first place. I stepped aside. She sat on my couch, the same couch we'd watched old movies on when she was small, and pressed her hands into her eyes like she could rewind time. "Daniel," she began, her voice cracking. "He wasn't who I thought he was." I didn't speak. I waited, because now, for the first time in months, she was finally talking. For a long moment, she just sat there, shaking. Rain tapped against the windows in a slow, steady rhythm. The house felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath. "He only married me for the money," Olivia whispered finally. I didn't react. Not outwardly. But something inside me went very still. "What money?" I asked. She gave a hollow laugh. "Exactly." She told me everything in fragments. How Daniel had slowly started planting seeds months before the wedding. How he'd say things like, "Your mom doesn't trust you to make your own decisions." How he'd roll his eyes whenever I called. How he'd suggest we create healthy distance. At first, she thought he was protecting her independence. Now she understood he was isolating her. "When the honeymoon got canceled, he lost it," she said, staring at her hands. "He kept asking why you'd do that. He thought you were bluffing." I said nothing. "When the savings account was empty," her voice broke. "That's when he changed." Changed. Such a gentle word for something violent. "He started calling me stupid," she continued. "Said I should have known how to manipulate you better. That I let you win." Manipulate. The word hit differently than pathetic. This wasn't rebellion. This was calculation. "And then 2 weeks ago," she whispered, "I found out he was cheating." Of course he was. With his ex-girlfriend. Her family's wealthy. Like, old money wealthy. He'd already been meeting her behind my back. He moved out 3 days later. Filed for divorce yesterday. The room felt heavy. She looked so small sitting there. Not the confident bride from Facebook. Not the defensive woman on the porch. Just my daughter. "I was so stupid," she sobbed. "You tried to warn me. You saw something I didn't, and I chose him. I chose him over you." There it was. The truth. She reached for my hand. Instinctively. And for a split second, I almost let her take it. But I pulled back. Not cruelly. Deliberately. "Olivia," I said slowly, "you didn't just choose him." Her face crumpled. "You stood there while he shoved me." The memory flooded back. The porch, the smirk, the shove. "You called me pathetic," I continued, my voice steady but low. "You agreed with him." She covered her face. I know. I don't know why I said that. I was angry. I thought you were trying to ruin my happiness." "I wasn't trying to ruin it," I said. "I was trying to protect you." "I see that now," she whispered. The silence stretched between us. Not hostile, just raw. "I need you to understand something," I said finally. "When you cut me out of your wedding, when you let him treat me like I was nothing, something broke." Her shoulders trembled. "I didn't think you'd actually sell the house," she admitted softly. I gave a sad smile. "You didn't think I'd stop." She shook her head. "I thought you'd always be there, no matter what I did." That sentence was honest, painfully honest, and it revealed something deeper than Daniel's manipulation. She had never believed I would choose myself. I stood and walked to the window, watching the rain streak down the glass. Love isn't the same thing as unconditional access, I said quietly. She sniffled behind me. I don't expect you to fix everything, she said. I don't want to lose you. I turned back toward her. You already did, I replied gently. The words hurt both of us, but that doesn't mean it can't be rebuilt. Her eyes lifted, hopeful, fragile. You'd give me another chance? I took a slow breath. I'm willing to try. Her entire body seemed to exhale. But we're starting from zero, I continued. She nodded quickly. Anything. No more financial safety nets, I said clearly. No more quiet deposits, no more rescuing. She swallowed. Okay. If you want to see me, you call and we schedule something. You show up on time. She nodded again. If you want help, you ask respectfully, and you accept that I might say no. Her lips trembled. I understand. And therapy, I added, for you. Not because you're broken, but because you need to figure out who you are without a man telling you who to be, and without me cushioning every fall. She wiped her face with her sleeve. I'll go, she whispered. I believed her, not because of the tears, because for the first time in months, she wasn't defensive. She was accountable. I walked her to the door. The rain had slowed to a mist. Before stepping outside, she turned and wrapped her arms around me. Tightly. Not possessive. Not entitled. Just grateful. Thank you, Mama, she whispered. I held her for exactly 3 seconds. Then I let go. As she walked to her car, I stood in the doorway watching her disappear into the rain. When the taillights faded, I closed the door. And for the first time in months, I cried. Not out of devastation, but release. Because I finally understood something I should have learned years ago. Being a good mother does not mean being a doormat. And love, real love, sometimes requires letting someone fall so they can learn how to stand. The road ahead would be slow, complicated, earned. But this time, it would be on my terms. For weeks after that night, I expected silence again. Instead, I got effort. Not dramatic gestures, not emotional speeches. Effort. Olivia texted 3 days later. Can we have coffee Saturday, 10 a.m.? Your choice of place. No emojis, no guilt tripping, no urgency. Just respectful. I stared at the message longer than I needed to. Then I replied, 10 a.m. is fine. She arrived 5 minutes early. That alone told me something had shifted. She looked tired, but cleaner, composed. No theatrical sadness. Just someone trying to stand upright after falling hard. We talked about neutral things at first. Work, weather, the fact that the divorce paperwork had officially been filed. She told me she had started therapy. Twice a week, she said quietly. I didn't realize how easily I let him define my reality. I nodded, but didn't say I told you so, because that wasn't the point anymore. The point was whether she could rebuild trust brick by brick. Not with money, not with nostalgia, with behavior. Weeks turned into a cautious rhythm. Coffee once a week, short dinners, boundaries held. If she complained about finances, I listened but did not offer rescue. If she hinted at struggling with rent, I said, I trust you'll figure it out. It felt unnatural at first. Maternal instinct doesn't switch off just because logic says it should. But something fascinating happened. She did figure it out. She picked up freelance design projects, moved into a smaller apartment, sold some jewelry Daniel had bought her. And each time she solved a problem without me stepping in, I saw something reassemble in her posture. Confidence, not arrogance. Self-earned stability. One evening, about 2 months after she showed up in the rain, she said something that surprised me. I think Daniel needed someone to feel smaller than him, she said thoughtfully, and I needed someone to tell me what to do. That was growth. Painful. Honest. I confused intensity with love, she added. I sipped my tea. And what do you think love actually is? I asked. She thought about it. Respect, she said finally. Safety. Accountability. I let that answer sit between us. Because those were the very things she had stripped from me that day on the porch. There were still moments that stung. Holidays felt awkward. Photos felt complicated. Trust isn't a switch. It's a slow return of oxygen. But something real was happening. Not a fairy tale reconciliation. A negotiated one. 3 months later, she invited me to a small gallery showing of her work. No grand announcement. No emotional speech, just an invitation. I stood in that quiet art space watching strangers compliment her pieces, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like her bank account. I felt like her mother. Afterwards, she walked me to my car. I know I don't deserve how patient you've been, she said softly. This isn't patience, I replied. It's boundaries. She smiled faintly. I'm learning the difference. And that's when I realized something unexpected. The hardest thing I did wasn't selling the house. It wasn't canceling the honeymoon. It wasn't blocking her number. The hardest thing was refusing to rush forgiveness. Because forgiveness without accountability is just permission for repetition. I didn't lose my daughter. I lost the illusion that sacrifice guarantees loyalty. What I gained was something steadier. An adult relationship, not built on dependence, not fueled by guilt, but rebuilt slowly, intentionally, on equal footing. A year from now, maybe we'll laugh about parts of this. Or maybe some scars will always remain sensitive. But I know this much. The woman who stood on that porch and got shoved aside, she doesn't exist anymore. And the daughter who stood there silently, she's learning who she wants to become. As for Daniel, he faded exactly the way men like him always do. Looking for the next woman who mistakes dominance for devotion. I don't hate him. I don't even think about him much anymore. Because in the end, he didn't destroy my family. He exposed the cracks that were already there. And once you see cracks clearly, you can either pretend they don't exist, or you reinforce the foundation. I chose the foundation. And for the first time in 15 years, I'm not just someone's mother. I'm Catherine Morgan, and that's finally enough.